What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Miami. This is season 7, episode 8. And let me just say this. I'm happy that Guerdy stood on business in front of the whole entire table. It doesn't seem like it's going to be long-lived, that she's going to keep this attitude, but at least she stood up for herself in that one moment, all right? Secondly, you know how badly you got to mess up for me to be agreeing with Adriana. Girl, because I ain't seen it for Adriana since season 1, okay? The only time during the earlier seasons that I have ever been down for Adriana is when she popped Johanna in the face. Because that lady, Adriana told that lady several times to stop following her. And that girl was coming at her from behind in such an aggressive manner that I thought Adriana was well within her right to pop her in her mouth. Because, girl, she done told you to get away from her. But that's the only time. And I think that was like season 2. Maybe season 3. But that's really the only time I've really been like really there for Adriana. But this season, I'm singing a different tune. I'm singing it because she's speaking common sense, okay? But let's get into this review. Y'all, so y'all know sometimes before we get in to the review, we get a little spicy just a little bit. Now, while I was recording the spicy corner for this video, it was long. It was very long. I did not believe that I had that many stuff like screenshotted in my phone. So I decided to turn it into a standalone spicy corner. So I'll put the thumbnail on the screen for you guys to know what to look for, but also put the link in the description box below. I talked about Julia and Isaac Mizrahi on Watch What Happens Live. I talked about Isaac's comments about the drink throwing situation and Guerdy responding on 2 T's in a pod. I also talked about Guerdy's interview with the Veil Files, as well as I gave my thoughts on the mid-season trailer. And some people might not be a fan of my thoughts, but I talked about them. So if you want to know all of that information, please check out that video for me, all right? So let's get into the review. All right, y'all, so let's get into this review. So the episode opens up and we're with Martina and Julia. We're at their house and they're down by the docks. They're talking about how life has been different since they got the boys. It's been a lot louder in their house. And Julia saying, like, it's been a minute since it's been quiet in this house, you know? She keeps talking about how, like, you know, everyone has told me it was different from raising girls to raising boys. And my thing is, I don't think that. Mind you, I don't have kids, okay? But I do have a large extended family on my mom's side, mostly women, but we do have boys in there. And I'm trying to think, like, when my male cousins were toddlers versus my female cousins being toddlers. And I'm like, when they were kids, like, by the time they hit like 4, yes, things got different because I feel like that's when their personality started to show way more, especially with them being able to speak more and like talk about what they like and their interests and things of that nature. Versus when you're like 3 and down, I feel like all of them are relatively the same with different little quirks and things of that nature. I'm like, at the end of the day, they're all surprised by different things in life. Like, one of my favorite videos is this little boy learning how to do a thumbs up. He couldn't have been no more than like 2, but like he was like this, he like made a fist and then his fingers popped up and his little, when I tell you that little baby's eyes was like, and he did it and everyone was clapping for him and he was like, like it was adorable because everything is new to children at that age. They are going to be curious, bad, loud. So I was just like, it's not that big of a difference, Julia. And I think she feels like making that like statement, I don't, maybe she's trying to make an excuse if she's not good at it because she had girl daughters, but I also feel like girl daughters, that's an oxymoron. That is an oxymoron. But I just feel like because she thinks she had daughters and maybe she wasn't that present with them, she just wants to keep saying, well, it's different because they're boys, it's different, but it's getting annoying to me. So Martina's like, yeah, we got to make sure we put them to sleep so we can get some sleep. Mind you, Martina's about to be 70 years old and Julia is 53. I don't know why y'all did this, okay? I don't know why they let y'all do this. So then they start talking about what happened at Guerdy's event. Julia was like, she felt totally blindsided. Like, she legit 100% didn't think that Guerdy would do that at her own event. Like, it threw her off. off. And Martina ends up saying, it's a good thing that I didn't go, because if I would have went, I would have been upset. Nobody cares about your feelings, Martina. Be upset, okay? Because were you upset when your wife told you she threw a drink at that lady? Because if you weren't, then no one cares. So they continue on, where then Julia starts talking about Adriana and how Adriana was pressing her to go back inside of the event and tell Guerdy or speak to Guerdy and like show her truth. And they show us a flashback of Julia saying like, I'm not doing that and I'm not running away, Adriana. Because Adriana was like, girl, if you don't do it, it seems like you're running away. So she was like, I'm not running away from anything. So then Julia says in her confessional that she feels as though that Adriana is resentful or has some resentment towards her because she is now cool with Alexia and Marisol, and that they like her. They actually like her and they don't like her. And I said, you are such a crappy friend. Such a crappy friend. Like, this is definitely given what Nicole said, and we'll talk about that here soon, where she basically made this comparison to Julia, saying Julia is like the new girl that comes to school. She makes friends with people who will make friends with her, but the people that she really wants to make friends don't acknowledge her. And then when they do acknowledge her and they make space for her, she drops all her friends and runs directly towards them, people that she think are the cool kids. And that's basically what Julia is doing, because don't get me wrong, Adriana is not my cup of tea. And I do like Marisol and I tolerate Alexia, but I will be honest, when you look at all three of them together, there's blame on all three sides. There was a time when all three of them were actually really close, but they have turned into frenemies, where we do see them, like, when something bad happens, they'll show up for each other, but that doesn't mean they're not talking trash about you or like jealous or envious or being negative towards you. And it's not like Adriana is always the aggressor. Sometimes it's Marisol. Sometimes it's Alexia. They all do their own little dig. So to act like Adriana is vying for these women's attention in that way of like being friends with them, I think is a hard reach. And it also shows how little of respect you have for her, Julia, as well as her situation with them. Because when they was calling you a Russian prostitute, Adriana was in the trenches defending you. Even when Adriana snapped on Guerdy the first season, when Guerdy was trying to relate to Julia's situation about her son, and she shared that she had a miscarriage, y'all was ready to drive a car over Guerdy. But now all of a sudden she has resentment because you're friends with Alexia and Marisol. That's nasty work. That's nasty, bro. So conversation continues with us finding out that Julia did listen to Adriana and she went back into the building to have a conversation with Guerdy. Julia ends up telling Martina, I did go back in there, but I only wanted to ask Guerdy one question. So we see her asking Guerdy, what was the point of you doing that? Why am I here for you to do that to me? And Guerdy ends up saying, you promised me that we would not bring this up. But before Guerdy could even get it out of her mouth, Julia ends up saying, Guerdy, what you will not do is put your finger in my face. And here's the thing. I gave Julia a point because my thing about it is, Guerdy, you already embarrassed the lady with the text messages, and now you are kind of like trying to reprimand her. Not even kind of, you were reprimanding her. And I'm just saying, if I was Julia, I would have snapped out on you too. But my thing about Guerdy, which she does have a right to be like, girl, you promised me this, this, and this. Be careful, because in the spicy corner, Guerdy did reveal that this is the third time that Julia has gotten violent. She threw water on her. On the first season, she tried to dump a bucket of ice onto Marisol, and then there was another altercation that happened, but they didn't show it. So I'm like, you're pointing your finger at this lady, knowing good and well she has a tendency to get aggressive. So if you're not ready to box, then you might want to back up a bit. But also, Guerdy was being snippy too, and I'm just like, Guerdy, if you wanted this to be a pathway to move forward, you're going to have to be open. I know it's the heat of the moment, and then she gets snippy with you, but it's like, you're saying that you did that so y'all could close the chapter and move forward. She's back in here. That could have been an opportunity for you to continue the conversation, but I get it. Tensions was high, you was hot, okay? So Guerdy ends up telling Julia, girl, then get out my face. If you don't want to have a conversation, get out my face. I don't even know why you here. She then ends up saying, girl, you came in here with sneakers on and the thing was cocktail chic. And then the cameraman pans to Julia's feet and she do got on sneakers on and they weren't nice sneakers. I don't care what name brand they are or who they were from. They did not go with her outfit. I was like, ooh, Julia, you couldn't find better white shoes than that. So then you have Martina talking about, well, I wore sneakers at the Royal Box, and these sneakers I have on right now are Chanel. Mind you, they look like bowling shoes to me. But they show a picture at the French Box where it's Julia and Martina sitting behind Princess Kate, Duchess Kate, whatever, Kate and Meghan. And Martina's paying attention to the game. Julia looks like she is like trying to listen to the conversation that's happening between Kate and Meghan. And I'm like, because at first I'm like, are you a Meghan hater? Like, what's going on with this? And mind you, no one cares about royalty over there or the monarch if you live in America, because the next thing that comes out of Martina's mouth is like, so for Guerdy, sneakers not okay, but for the Royal Open they are. What? And I'm like, Martina, no one gives a damn about the monarch over here. When the queen died, all of the Americans were laughing at everybody who was rejoicing about that lady's death. Like, I was on Irish side of TikTok, and the way that they was geeked and having parties about that lady being dead, like, there was no reverence. Like, I'm just kind of like, Martina, no one cares about that. The only princess that I've ever seen anybody really go hard for was Princess Diana. That's the only person. The only person. And the only reason why people care about Meghan and Harry is because of all the racism that she has faced at the hands of the white women overseas and the media over there. If that wouldn't have happened and y'all welcomed that lady with open arms, nobody would care about Meghan, if you ask me. Tina, no one cares. No one cares. So then Julia tried to say, well, I apologized about the water and your apology was crap. It was crap. You didn't even want to really look at her in the eye when you gave the apology. And Julia's like, well, I thought we had moved on. So then Martina says, not so much. So then she talks about how, this was a serious thing. You're somebody that survived cancer. A few years ago, people weren't living when they got cancer. And to do that at your own event, it doesn't make sense to me. So next is Stephanie and Larsa. Honestly, I don't know how important this scene is going to be, especially with the tea that's been spread online. And I'll read it for y'all in a few moments. But basically, we see Stephanie and Larsa at Stephanie's house, the house that she shares with Masood. Masood used to have this house with his ex-wife, but Stephanie decided that if they were going to live in that house, that she wanted to gut it and completely renovate it, the house where no parts of the house reminds him of his ex-wife. Masood wanted her to move into it as is, but she said no. She said, no, ma'am, like, I'm not doing that. They were living in a penthouse apartment, but Masood really doesn't want to get rid of the home, so they're moving back in there. We found out that the place is 22,000 square feet, and it has 40-foot ceilings. We actually see the construction workers in the house, like, doing all of their stuff, and she takes Larsa to this one room that is going to be, like, her closet, where it's going to be a wall full of Birkins and all of this stuff. Then we see her take her to the balcony to look outside. They cemented up the pool, and then they pushed the pool back into the woods. Now, mind you, I thought it was a smart idea to push the pool back into the woods because now it's like encased inside the trees. That gives you more privacy. That's a vibe to me. So they're standing at the back of the house, and Stephanie's like, let's continue the tour. And Larsa's like, well, hold up a minute, because we need to talk for a minute. So she was like, how did you feel about last night, about Guerdy's party? And Larsa said, girl, it was crazy. So then Stephanie said, I feel like I've never been to a party that has not had any problems when it comes to y'all. Like, I just feel like it's a lot going on. And Stephanie says, the thing about me and Alexia, she was like, is Alexia always talking to people in that manner? And Larsa says, I just feel like you had a lot of stuff to get off your chest about Alexia. And she was just like, well, yeah, because she's been really coming at me. And so they showed the flashbacks where Stephanie and Alexia were arguing back and forth. And pretty much Larsa tells Stephanie, I think she's bothered by the fact that you keep bringing up Todd because it's very sensitive. And so Stephanie said, well, my thing about it is I told her she's beautiful, she's smart. Like, when God takes the trash out of your life, why bring it back in? Nothing That's the problem, Stephanie. You don't know that lady. I don't think what anything Stephanie has said has been tremendously horrible, but like that is not your place to speak on that. Like you don't know that lady, and you know she's in like this really like divorce with this man where she don't know what she want to do. You've been in her presence several times where you yourself even said in your confessionals, like I feel like she's blinded. So do you think you're gonna be the one to like take the rose colored glasses off her? Because you not. So leave it alone. Editor Leah here, y'all. I just realized I did not tell y'all the tea that was posted online about Stephanie and this house. So let's get into it. This was a Reddit post that they kept resharing on Twitter the night of the episode. So it says this. It says Stephanie Shojai and her husband Masood were forced to sell their 12,500 plus square foot Moorish style mansion after failing to repay an $8 million mortgage loan on time. So it continues on by saying this. They defaulted on their mortgage in August of 2024 by failing to repay the entirety of an $8 million they borrowed. The bank filed a foreclosure suit on January the 6th, and they sold the home on January the 17th. And then it gets cut off, all right? So I don't know how important this storyline is going to be because they're saying that they don't have that house anymore. Also, people were upset with Stephanie by two comments she made during this scene. One saying that there's going to be a staff quarters entrance and she didn't really want her staff going through the front door. Another statement where she basically said that Masood's house was too Persian, that she thought a genie was going to come out of the chimney. Now, the staff quarters comment, it didn't bother me too much. I still felt like, girl, you shouldn't have said that. But the genie comment, I don't know if that is like a racial thing, but it definitely was an off-colored comment where I was like, yeah, girl, you should have kept that to yourself. Leave it alone. So we find out that Larsa and Kiki are throwing this yacht party. And Larsa said they were all supposed to be on one boat together. But then since the situation that happened at Guerdy's event, now they got to get two boats. So we actually see a flashback of Kiki and Larsa at Larsa's apartment where Kiki actually makes a phone call to, the owner of the yacht club. And she was like, can we get another boat? And he's like, yeah, I got you. We could get another boat. I said, come on, Kiki. Use your connections. Use them connections. So we even actually see them trying to divvy up the group. And I actually like this scene. It was cute, it's childish, it was unserious with the little what's it called? The little graphics of the heads bobbling. That's the aspect of Real Housewives that I like, when things are cool, like they're funny, they're petty, they're unserious. And this was unserious. We find out on Kiki's boat it's gonna be Lisa, Guerdy, and it was supposed to be Adriana and Marisol, but we ended up seeing them call Marisol, and Marisol was like, I don't know. I don't want to be on that boat with her. You know, me and Adriana not in a good place. Like, I don't enjoy her, and we gonna have to sleep on this boat. She might come up in my room and try to stab me. I'm not doing it. So then they switched up the group again. So now only on Kiki's boat will be Lisa, Guerdy, and Adriana. On Larsa's boat will be Stephanie, Alexia, Julia, and Marisol. So Larsa basically promises Stephanie that she's going to have a good time on the yacht party and not distress. So then we end up going to Alexia's and we see Peter and Frankie. Peter pulls up to this new house that they're living in. We find out that Alexia is living month to month. Girl, I don't even like living month to month in an apartment. Like, that is no. So she's living month to month. They're living in this area. I think it's Vienta Islands. She was like, because she don't know where her life gonna be at. Girl, it's giving you waiting for some man to come and save you so you can pay, like they can pay that rent. Or you're hoping that Todd will pay the rent. Or maybe Todd is paying the rent. He told you he only gonna do month to month. Because I was like, this don't make any sense. So Alexia's whole thing is like, I don't even know where my life is going to be at tomorrow. So that's why we think it's okay for us to live month to month. In the confessional, the producers end up asking her, it doesn't seem like you and Peter talk about Todd. And Alexia says, Todd is like kind of a touchy subject for me, as well as my kids have been through a lot where I don't even want to involve them in this situation. So then you see Peter tell Frankie, oh, you looking a little bit thinner. Like, that's a good thing. We find out that Frankie has a new diagnosis where they find out that he had diverticulitis. And if you don't know what that is, because I looked it up to make sure that I was right about what I was talking about. It's inflammation in your small intestines, mainly your digestive tract, and it's like little pockets of like infection. And most of the time that is due to like medications or a certain diet or lifestyle choices. So Alexia was like, we just have to make sure his diet stays well and stays healthy. We find out that Frankie was in the hospital vomiting, not being able to keep things down. And Alexia and Peter started to get emotional because it reminds them of what happened to him in 2011, Frankie, where he had the brain injury, and they both start getting emotional. Frankie getting annoyed. Like, he's like, can y'all chill out with all this? Like, chill out. Chill out. I'm here. Chill out. And they're like, we get it. But Alexia also explains how, Peter may be older than Frankie, but when they were younger before the accident, Peter used to look up to his younger brother. Like, and if you go back and watch the earlier seasons, Frankie was a very smart kid and very I would say he was more of like the analytical and like artsy and logical kid, whereas you had Peter, who was the hot boy, like living that fast and loose life. So I could see him looking up to his younger brother and just being like, wow, you're doing great things. And then this happens. And now the roles are reversed in the sense of where you actually have to be the older brother. Because Alexia keeps saying how she wants Frankie to be taken care of in the effect, like when she passes away by Peter. And I still don't get why, girl. Peter don't even look like he really be taking care of himself. Like, he might be on a good track for right now, but it's not looking to, he still be looking rough. And he only 32 and he look rough. He look like he done had a hard life, girl, to be 32. So I don't know. I also hope Alexia is still working with that foundation to allow Frankie to be independent to a certain extent. Because I could see that working if Frankie was living at like an adult facility where like he had his own apartment, and maybe Peter would check up on him like every week to make sure he was good from time to time. But like, I just don't see Peter taking care of Frankie like that. I don't. So Frankie ends up like telling them to stop crying, like I said, because they are like reminiscent. And Peter says, I think things will be okay. They even show a flashback where Alexia tells Peter, when Herman died, I did not put you down to take care of Frankie. And Peter was like, you made the right decision. So Peter even know that he probably should not be taking care of that boy. Like, what? And there is also a lot of responsibility to put on somebody for you to constantly tell somebody, you're going to be taking care of your brother in the effect when I leave. Like when I die. And I was like, that's a lot of pressure. That's anxiety inducing, girl. But Alexia ends up saying that she thinks that Peter and Frankie are going to be okay, that this is Peter's year, and that's where it ends with them. All right, y'all. So let's continue on. Clearly, I got on a different shirt. I had to change my shirt, had to go run some errands. So here we are. So we continue the episode with this sit down with Nicole and Gertie. And it was cute. You could tell that Nicole and Gertie are actually friends beyond this show. And it seems like they haven't seen each other in a long time because they both said like they missed each other. Life has probably been lifing for both of them. Nicole, we find out that her daughter was born prematurely. I think she said 6 or 7 weeks early, and she had to spend like 10 days in the NICU, and they were worried about her weight and her breathing. But the little girl seems to be doing fine now. She's like, I think she said she's in the 90th percentile when it comes to weight and growing as a child, as the age that she is. They also talk about how she looks like the dad. If you don't remember, unfortunately, unexpectedly, Nicole's dad passed away right around the time she found out that she was pregnant. So they were able to tell the dad that she was pregnant, and then unfortunately he passed. Hopefully, I hope they made amends to a certain extent, because even though Nicole used to be over her dad, you could tell that she wanted to be in a better place with him, in a good place with him. So I hope that they were in a good place before he passed away. We find out that Nicole's trying to get her groove back. Postpartum has been hard for her. She's just trying to get back to how she used to be. Guerdy says she wants to help Nicole with that because she also is trying to get back to where she is. They then start talking about Stephanie, and we find out that Anthony is very particular about the women he dates. So that's kind of why Stephanie and Nicole are so similar, because Guerdy even pointed out that she's short and petite and small and cute and fashionable, works really hard and has a plane, and you the same way. And so they FaceTime Stephanie. We find out that Stephanie and Guerdy have been communicating a lot, so it seems like that's a friendship that's growing. and Stephanie, it met Nicole with warm energy. She was like, "Oh my God, hey girl." She was like, "Oh, I'm planning on going blonde too, but I heard it's a lot of work." And Nicole was like, "Well, yeah, I'm thinking about turning my hair red." And then Stephanie was like, "Me too." Like, she was like, "Girl, we could not be twins." Stephanie even posted pictures that after they did the FaceTime, Stephanie, Guerdy, and Nicole hung out. So it seems like that relationship is growing, and that Stephanie and Nicole don't have any issues with each other. So if they do, if Nicole does come back, that's probably not going to be no beef, because they don't have no beef with each other. Because it seems like Stephanie dated Anthony way back in the day, because she said, when I met Anthony, I knew that he was going to be something big or something serious. And then she threw some little fun shade about her plane being bigger, and people were mad about that. And I was like, well, to me, that's the shade I like. It's cute, it's funny, because at the end of the day, don't nobody else watching this show got a plane like that. They got planes. Both of them have planes. So what are we talking about? Just be happy you have a plane, So they get off the phone with her, and Nicole says, when I found out that she was going to be a part of the group, I was actually worried because, Stephanie seems to have like alpha energy, and so does Alexia. And she was like, it turns into like this competition. So she was like, I was worried that things were going to go left for them. And she was just like, well, yeah, Stephanie and Alexia actually got into it. Guerdy ends up explaining how, I did my speech. I showed the text messages. And she also said that Nicole was supposed to be at that event. We could have had 2 appearances with Nicole. And she was like, I put up the text messages. Stephanie actually wanted to come in the event and talk to me. And then Alexia and then were saying, like, go in there and kiss Guerdy's ass. And even Nicole was like, whoa, like, why would they say that? And she was like, yeah. So then Nicole was like, see, there's always this like blind alliances in this group. Like, people just be having them blinders on like horses do. And like, if we're supposed to be friends, we're supposed to be friends. You're supposed to be able to call people out on their BS, and we move forward. It shouldn't just be blind allegiances or alliances. She also says that, even the whole facelift comment, I even told you I thought the facelift thing was a little too far, or it wasn't a place that I would go. But mind you, Nicole, I don't like that, because she only said the facelift comment because Julia threw a drink on her. Like, Guerdy would not have made the facelift comment if there was no drink thrown on her. She wouldn't have made it. So it's like, after you throw a drink on me, which is considered assault in certain states, then I can say and do whatever I want to you because you initiated combat, bro. Are you serious? I was like, Nicole, this supposed to be your friend. Like, ride with your friend, okay? And so they then start talking. Guerdy starts talking about this in her confessional, where she says, would I have made that my first choice of showing the text messages? No, not really. She was like, especially not at my event, but she was like, I tried with the group to like get them to see my side, and people pretended to say that like I'm right or that they're riding with me, but there were already like, people already picked whose side they were going to be on no matter what. So at this point, I felt pushed too far, and I did what I needed to do. I did what I felt was right for me, and it is what it is at this point. So then Nicole ends up saying, how did we get so far left like this? She was like, after you had your surgery, me and Julia were the first one to come like check up on you. And Guerdy is like, yeah, y'all really were. So it's just crazy. Then they bring up how they haven't seen Julia and Adriana hang out in a while. And Guerdy was like, yeah, girl, I told you that like it's kind of weird that they haven't been kicking it with one another. So then that's when Nicole brings up the analogy where she was like, when there's a new girl in middle school and she doesn't really have a lot of friends, so she clings on to the people that she becomes friends with. But then the moment she's given the opportunity to be friends with the people that she thinks is cool or like really like smart and all of that stuff, or who she really wants to be friends with, she throws the people that she's been friends with to the wayside. And that's really what's happening here. And Guerdy was like, I call them the pick me girls. And when I thought about it, I was like, would that be pick me energy? And I think it is, because if you are willing to discard people that have been there for you just to be a part of a certain group or a clique, yeah, that is pick me energy right there. So then Guerdy ends up asking, what's her name? Nicole, when would you come back to the group? And Nicole is like, TBD. Girl, to yet to be determined. Are y'all? And I wonder if Nicole would come back. You know, the whole PI situation where they said it was Marisol who had somebody following Nicole and Anthony allegedly to get dirt on them. I wonder if Nicole would be like, I would come back, but Marisol can't be there, or she would have to be reprimanded. And I don't know how important Nicole is to this franchise in order for them to make in order for her to make a demand like that and they actually accept it and go forth with it. But it would be nice to have her back. I like she's a foil. She's a foil to Alexia, Marisol, and Larsa. She's young, she's smart, she got a bunch of money by way of her own self. She had to marry into money. Her man got a bunch of money. She has 2 beautiful kids. She gave us her backstory about her daddy. Like, if I would rank, even though I'm not the biggest Nicole fan, I'm not. There's always been something with Nicole and Anthony where I'm just like, I feel like something about that money is a little bit funny because they're always moving. I just found out that the house that they had on Star Island that we saw them renovating last year, they sold for $40 million to that man, Robbie Williams, who had that biopic about a monkey. Yeah. And here's my thing. $40 million ain't nothing to sneeze at. So I understand selling the home, but that's like the third or the second house that they have sold on this show. Because when we first met Nicole and Anthony, they were in a beautiful home. And I think Nicole was getting irritated and like her and Anthony kind of got into it because she was like, I'm tired of moving. But I wonder like, why do they keep moving? That's always been my pause with Nicole, because I'm like, is Anthony like Toya Harris or Married to Medicine and Nicole is like the Dr. Eugene? Like, because I'm like, why are we always moving? I mean, we making good profit. Are we moving to pay off debt collectors, the IRS? I don't know. But that's always been my kind of thing with Nicole. I also don't like that Nicole doesn't stand in her like intellectualism. Like, I want her to be an intellectual elitist. Like, same the way I wanted Dr. Wendy to be that way with the women. If y'all gonna keep throwing things in my face about how smart I am, then I'm gonna use that against you. And I wish she would stand into that because she is smart. Girl, you went to school for 8 years. Maybe even more, probably more. I think 12 because you have to specialize. Like, bro, ain't nobody on this cast could tell me nothing, okay? Nothing, all right? But yeah, like to me, Nicole was the alpha of this group. The women may not have all liked her, but if we put resumes on paper, Nicole's resume eats. She's the youngest, she's the smartest, she got a good man, 2 beautiful kids. She gave us a good backstory about her dad, and she wasn't afraid to go back and forth with people. Like, and she got money. The money might be funny, but she got money. Then I would say Alexia would be next because she's given us a lot of her life with the cocaine cowboy, with Herman being gay, him coming out the closet after he passed away, or, you know, her finding out, you know, he was gay and closet and all that stuff. Then what happened to Frankie back in 2011. Then, the situations, all them situations with Peter, then this situation with Todd, then her mom dying. Like, Alexia has given a lot. She's given a lot. Then I would say Lisa with this whole divorce with Lenny and the way that he played in her face, kicking her out, the dramatics right there, and her giving us her backstory about her father. Then I would go next with Guerdy because she doesn't have to be open about her cancer situation, but she is. We're getting more backstory about her life as being, you know, a Haitian immigrant and what that felt like as a child, way more than what she's given us before. We do know that, unfortunately, she lost family members in the Haiti earthquake, but she's never given us this much information about how she feels like isolated at times and how she doesn't like not being included in groups. It's like a trigger for her. Then I would say Julia, because Julia did share with us about like what happened to her son and, you know, her relationships with Martina and things of that nature. And then I would say Larsa, because Larsa did give us her divorce with Scottie Pippen and then her relationship with Marcus Jordan. But yeah, if you think about it, Nicole is maxing out everybody on this page if we talking about who is the quintessential housewife in this cast. So I can always give you your props, even if like I don't like you that much. But I do miss her because she was the foil in this group and we need somebody to be a foil. All right, y'all. So it's now time for them to go on the yachts, okay? So on Kiki's boat, if you remember, it's Guerdy, Lisa, Adriana, but we found out that Lisa brings her friend Ebony, who also knows Guerdy and Kiki. So that's going to be a fun time. I wonder if Ebony was auditioning to be a friend of the show, which would be cool to get another friend of. Then you have on Larsa's boat, you have Marisol, Alexia, Julia, and Stephanie. All right. So everyone's getting on their boats. We're looking at the boats. Both yachts are really nice. I would have wanted to be on Kiki's yacht only because Kiki's yacht gave that it was up to date, like it was more modern, like the decor in the den area with the sofa looked way better to me than that blue and white that they had going on in Larsa's yacht. But then again, a yacht is a yacht. So if I get invited on a yacht, I'm going to go on the yacht. Okay? It doesn't matter. So you hear Alexia in her confessional saying that she's really excited for this weekend getaway. Like she really needs it. She says, honestly, no hard feelings. I'd rather not be around Stephanie. And then we pay into them being on the boat and Stephanie pulling up saying hi to everyone. And Alexia has this face of like, oh, hey. Oh my God. Why is she here? Why is she here? So Alexia is pretty much like over Stephanie. So they find out that Stephanie is not staying with them for the entire trip. They're going to Canada. And she says, I found this out 2 days before Larsa was telling us about this situation. She was like, my husband sent me a bunch of flowers with a card saying, let's go to Canada. And we see a flashback where he's like, yeah, let's go to Canada. Let's relax. Let's disappear. And you hear Julia say, he still do that? And I said, ooh, I guess Martina don't fill up your love tank. Shouts out to Vicky. I guess she don't do that for you anymore, Miss Julia. So then we get to the other yacht, and Kiki is talking about how like it sucks that they had to split up. I think they were going to split up either way. I don't think they had enough money pulled together to get one massive yacht for, if you think about it, Guerdy, Adriana, Lisa, Ebony, Kiki, Julia, Larsa, Stephanie, Alexia, Marisol. That's 10 people. Yep. That's 10 people. And then you think about like the staff included, you would need a pretty hefty yacht. And if y'all don't have the money to rent that out or to stay on there, I feel like 2 yachts combined is probably what y'all need to do. So I don't believe that they were ever going to be on 2 massive yachts together, okay? But Kiki was like, it just sucks that the group is divided. She said, I wish that Marisol could have been on this boat with us, but she said she didn't want to be on this yacht because of you, Adriana. Adriana was like, why? And Kiki said, she said it would have been a nightmare. And she was like, girl, what? A nightmare. So then on the other yacht, Marisol ends up saying, I'm glad I'm on here with you guys because I don't know if I could be around Adriana. Like, it would be a nightmare. The constant digs and the name calling, I'm just over it. So then Julia chimes in and she says, I understand, Marisol. I would feel the same way because of the way that I feel about Guerdy after what happened. I could not be on a boat with Guerdy. Larsa is like, yeah, after what happened, that was pretty messed up. I'm sorry about that. And then Marisol ends up saying, I was waiting for the bucket of blood to fall on you. So they genuinely think that Guerdy set Julia up. And I wonder, because honestly, them being on Julia's side is only conditional because they feel like Guerdy will pull a move like that on them. Like, they're afraid that Guerdy will pull up their text messages. But I do not believe they really care about what happened to Julia like that. I also feel like they do feel like it's planned because Marisol keeps giving us Carrie references. But I wonder, now that they have seen the episodes back and realized that it wasn't planned, then maybe that's why Marisol said they were both at fault because of this situation and what happened, because she might have felt like it canceled each other out. But yeah, I wonder if they feel some type of way differently because now we know that it wasn't planned, that Guerdy didn't just set Julia up. It just something that happened off the cuff, So we see that what's her name? Adriana is pissed that Marisol doesn't want to be on the same boat with her. She's saying, you know what? I can't stand her with her dried up, bony, shriveled up ass. I can't do it with her. So you can tell that Adriana has been drinking since they knew that they was getting on that boat. Because when I tell you she was gone because she's saying all of this. Then the next thing you know, this really attractive guy, I guess on this bike rides by and Adriana jumps up and she's like, hey, daddy, next time we got 3 girls waiting for you. I said, are you trying to proposition this man for an orgy? Like, what's happening? What is happening, sir? Ma'am, like, what we doing? What we doing? So she's screaming at the man that he's so hot and all of that stuff. So the boats undock and they go into the ocean. We hear Adriana say, you know what the problem is with Marisol is she has zero talent. And then they start seeing dolphins. Lisa sees a dolphin. She was like, oh my God, a dolphin. She was like, you know, I heard they be raping people. And then her friend Ebony was like, that is a serious thing. And it is. When I tell you dolphins have the best PR team, dolphins and killer whales, best PR team. Because we be thinking killer whales be so majestic, and killer is in their names, and they be murking animals. Dolphins be murking animals just for fun. Killer whales do the same thing. When I tell you dolphins do be assaulting people in the ocean and other animals, there's like this one puffer fish that can get dolphins high, and they will play with it till death just so they can get high off of it. They are evil. Beautiful creatures, but evil. evil animals, okay? And I think dolphins' brains are actually bigger than humans. So that, and you see what humans do when they just want to do something for fun when they bored. Yeah, dolphins have the best PR team. So then we see them put the boats together, which I thought was really cool to hear them like call out calls, and they put like these sponges to I guess absorb the impacts of the boats getting close to each other. I thought that was really cool to see. So they also put a ladder or a platform for the women to walk across so they can go to each other's boat. So then you see Adriana continue on where she was like, you know, Marisol is the ringleader. You hear Kiki say in her confessional, maybe I shouldn't have told Adriana what Marisol said. Girl, you knew this was going to set Adriana off. You wanted to see Adriana get active. Just own your mess, Kiki, because you knew this was going to piss that lady off. She then goes on to say that Marisol is manipulative and she is very cunning. And then she also says, no matter the fake Birkins or the fake cubic zirconium rings, I guess she said it will not take away from your evil soul or the evilness in your soul. So we then go back to the other boat and we see that Larsa ends up asking Alexia and Stephanie. She's like, "Are y'all good?" And Stephanie is like, yeah, I'm good with her. And Alexia said, I'm good too. But Alexia ends up saying, I didn't like the fact that you said I bark at you. And Stephanie is like, well, you did. And then Alexia is like, well, girl, you're a Chihuahua. But she was like, but I'm like a Rottweiler. So then Stephanie said, well, girl, I'm a wolf. And then Alexia says, well, girl, I'm a lion. I said, this is such a stupid argument. It reminded me of Marlo and Sheree. I was like, girl, this is dumb. This is dumb. So then we see the girls break that situation up where everyone sees Kiki and they're admiring her outfit because it is really cute. They're like, oh, you look like a pinup. Then you see Adriana say, hi, bitches. And everyone's like, hey, Adriana. The energy is different. And then you hear Marisol say, oh my gosh, she's so loca. And then you hear Adriana say, girl, Marisol, you're the one that induces the craziness. And she starts going off on Marisol. You then see Marisol tell Larsa and Alexia, see, she doesn't stop. That's why I didn't want to be on the boat with her. Like, it just doesn't start with her. So then Adriana keeps going on. She was calling Marisol a whore. She was like, F off, you old whore, to Marisol, and she's just going off. You then see Julia say, I don't know what's gotten into Adriana. She was like, honestly, Adriana's not a fun drunk like Marisol. You hear Larsa say in her confessional, somebody needs to give that girl a biscuit or something to get her to shut up. Then you got Lisa saying, you know, alcohol is poison. You know, that's why I stopped drinking, even though she drinking in the confessional. I said, okay, Lisa. And so then the rest of the women kind of walk away, and then you see Adriana yelling at the staff saying, you know what, they lured my best friend in there, you know, because she thinks she's with the cool girls, but she's not. She's with the mean cougars. And the staff is just looking at Adriana as some unhinged drunk lady. And also Adriana, they didn't lure Julia in there. Julia went over there by herself because she wanted to be over there, which is probably a harder pill to swallow than actually thinking that people entice them to go be on their side, to be honest. So Stephanie is about to leave, and she was like, y'all, I really do hope y'all don't get into no arguments or the fights don't continue, that y'all are cool to go. And then next thing you know, you see Adriana saying, with your bony knees, And then all the girls start laughing. And this is where I cringe with Adriana, because I do think Adriana is a necessity for this show, because she does go back and forth with Alexia and Marisol, and she's not afraid of them. But Adriana always goes beyond her point, where then it starts to reek of desperation. Now they're laughing at you. They're not bothered or offended by what you're saying, because then you hear Marisol said this bony ass got 3 husbands off of it. Like, it's not, your digs aren't landing. You just look crazy and drunk. And now everyone's like, girl, we need to take the alcohol away from her. So then you see Marisol in her confessional saying, see, this is why, like, I don't like being around her, because she sees me and then next thing you know, she goes off. She did it to me when we were on our way to the narcissism party. She was taking digs at me on the bus and everything, and it's I'm just over her. And everyone always asks me what's my problem with her, and I was like, I just think Adriana's an asshole and I don't want to be around her. So then we see Stephanie get on her boat, and she was like, girl, please take me to my husband, just take me to my husband. And we actually see her board the plane and leave. Then we see Larsa and Alexia get on a jet ski. Larsa, you need to reduce them ass shots. We need to take a little bit out, mamas, okay? Because the hips to leg ratio it's not consistent. So you just need to just take a little bit out and round it out. You can still have a fat booty with all of that. Okay. So we see them having a good time. Then Kiki decides, you know what, let's get some water guns. And I thought it was fun. Lisa's new swimsuit will look way cuter than the butterfly thing she had on. And then they all had like different James Bond's names. Lisa had the best one, where I think it was I think she was like Lisa Knock 'em Out, because I knocked the boys out with my looks. I liked her name, because they were saying that all the James Bond girls have like very like seductive and sultry names. So we see them run up on the girls, spray them with the like the water guns. Everyone's having a good time except Marisol, because Adriana makes a beeline for Marisol and starts squirting her. And Marisol is like, Adriana, stop, because it's not fun anymore. And so you hear Adriana say in her confessional, you know, Marisol is the Wicked Witch of the West, and clearly I'm Glinda. And I said, girl, if you watch Wicked, you're the bad guy. You're not the good person. Yeah, Elphaba is, girl. So I said, I don't even think you wanted to make that comparison. I don't, because even people have reanalyzed the old Wizard of Oz. Everyone felt like Glinda was bad for not just telling Dorothy, girl, click them heels and go home. So you're still bad, you know, even with the new reiteration. But she was like, you know, Marisol is like the Wicked Witch, you know, water makes her melt. So they all were like, well, you know, we were just trying to have a good time. Lisa was like, we were just trying to liven up the mood. Then you hear Adriana say, you know, Marisol's the only one that didn't have fun because she has a vendetta against me. And she was like, why can't you just have fun? And she was like, because I don't think it's fun. Next thing you know, Larsa starts spraying her with the water gun, and she's like, ugh. Then you see Alexia hold her mouth open, and they're just shooting the water in her mouth. And the way that Kiki said, cut her off from the alcohol, she was like, no more drinks for her. And I said, yeah, Kiki, no more drinks for Adriana. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. So then Marisol says, at least we know how she getting her mortgage paid. I said, girl, this is a mess. This is a mess. Of Julia and Adriana, we find out that the girls got a few hours to kill before it's time for them to have dinner together. So they're at the top of the boat. Kiki is ear hustling, which I thought was hilarious. And we have this moment where Julia is asking Adriana, can I ask you a question? And Adriana's like, yeah, like, what do you want to ask me? She was like, why did you, the other night at Guerdy's event, like, why did you not come after me? Like, why did you stay behind and listen? And Adriana said, well, I stayed behind because I wanted to be the person to help mediate something between y'all. And Julia was like, don't you see that what Guerdy did was wrong? Like, somebody needed to, and then you end up hearing Adriana cut her off and saying, well, girl, I don't condone what Guerdy did, but I still wanted to hear her out. Kiki is like at the top of the stairs just listening to them argue back and forth, which I would have did the same thing. And she was like, I just wanted to make sense of it all. She also brings up how, girl, when we were in New York, you didn't have my back when Alexia and Marisol were calling me liars. And so then Julia said, well, y'all been friends for years. And so I just wanted to hear both sides of the story. So she was like, so then why is it wrong that I did the same thing for Guerdy? Here, Adriana in her confessional saying, I feel like Julia started this. You threw water on her, and honestly, somebody showing text messages is not that deep versus you throwing water on them. So then Julia ends up saying, like, well, you know what Guerdy did was plan. She planned that whole event. Like, how perverted and deranged for her to like do something like this. And so then you hear Adriana say, like, girl, started this, you threw a drink on somebody, they retaliated, and it is what it is. But God forbid anybody call Julia out on her mess, because this ain't that big of a deal. So then you hear Julia tell Adriana, well, she's gonna be on this boat in a couple of hours. Are you gonna have my back? You know, she's probably gonna throw some pics at me. And a lot of people got pissed off when she said throw, like trying to paint Guerdy out to be aggressive. But I guess she was saying throw pics as like throw pictures or some type of information out there about me again. Well, if you wouldn't have tried that lady, she wouldn't have that information to throw out on you, girl. What we doing? What we doing, Julia? Like, you started this, and it's crazy that she is making herself a victim, and some of the women are victimizing her when, girl, you started it. You started it. You should have never started it. That's it, y'all. So it's time to eat. It's time for them to go to dinner. We see Guerdy get on the yacht. The energy is not energying, okay? When the rest of the people on the boat see Guerdy, because everyone's anticipating an argument between her and Julia. We see Adriana drinking. That looked like a tequila, like that bottle looked like a Tito's bottle, okay? It looked like a Tito's bottle. So Adriana getting more alcohol in her system. The food they had looked great. It looked delicious. We find out that Kiki picked it's all Haitian food. The food looked wonderful. So we then end up seeing Kiki explain, like, this is all Haitian food, and I just wanted you guys to try me and Guerdy's culture. So then you see you see Julia in the confessional, and she's basically like, she can't be fake. She's not really happy that Guerdy is there. So then you hear Lisa say, like, this is silly. Like, we're on this yacht. Nobody's really trying to like talk to each other. We all need to lighten up. So she suggested that they play this game where they all speak, like, really, like, say kind things or compliments to people that they have issues with. So she said Adriana and Marisol. Now, I will say this. I get that people don't like Marisol, but Adriana to me be doing the most when it comes to Marisol, because if Marisol would have turned the same venom on Adriana, everyone would be saying how much of a hater and how hateful Marisol is towards Adriana. Like, when it came to the water gun situation, I understood why Marisol didn't want Adriana to spray water at her, girl. You just said, I got bony knees. You said, I got a dried up ass. I'm a whore. Like, you've been going off on me for the past couple of minutes. Like, I'm not going to take that as it being fun. I'm going to think that you're doing it maliciously. And that might cause an argument or maybe even a fight, depending on the type of person. So Marisol is just like, girl, I really don't want to have this conversation with her or say anything. So Adriana basically says she thinks Marisol has great fashion sense, and she loves how loyal Marisol is to Alexia, and like nobody's business. And that was a dig to Julia, because the camera panned to Julia. So Marisol is trying to think of like what to say, and she says, you know what? Girl, and they are like flashing back to all the times that Marisol and Adriana have gotten into it. And Marisol eventually says, I think it's wonderful that you can play the piano. I wish I knew how to play the piano. And they leave it at that. And everyone was like, okay, that was actually nice. She gave compliments to your talent. Okay, but you could tell that Adriana, I feel like Adriana picks on Marisol because it's fun to her and it's easy to rile her up. But I really think Marisol does not like Adriana. And I think Adriana doesn't like Marisol, but she doesn't take anything that Marisol says to her. I don't think she internalizes it. Like, she just kind of is like, ugh, I can't stand her. Where I think Marisol really like does not like this lady. Which is wild. So they then do Guerdy and Julia. I was irritated that Guerdy says, you know what, Julia, I think you have a very compassionate heart. No, she don't. No, she don't. She said, the fact that you took on those two boys, I think is wonderful. And then Julia says, you know what, Guerdy, I think you throw fabulous parties, and I appreciate that you're honest with how you share your emotions. But then Julia ends up saying, you know what? I can't hide my emotions. I'm not a great actress. I'm going to just say how I feel. She said, honestly, it's hard for me to have a conversation with you after what transpired between us. She says, we had this conversation where we agreed that we were going to keep our issues between us, and then you did what you did. So Guerdy said, honestly, I may have misinterpreted what you did, but when you asked Daniel about like our situation, that hurt me again because you put me out there. So Julia ends up saying that, like, that was because he was supposed to help us with our issues. That's why I asked it. That's a lie. You asked it because you wanted to be messy and you wanted to cause mess, and that lady did what she did. So then next thing you know, you hear I think Alexia chime in, and she was like, honestly, Guerdy, nobody agrees with what you did. Like, why did you do that? And see, this is why people are pissed off at y'all. Did y'all chastise Julia in front of the group? Y'all may have done it like off camera, but you didn't go as hard at Julia than you are at Guerdy. And like Guerdy said, she was like, girl, honestly, I'm not here to take accountability for what I did. And I honestly don't care what anybody thinks. And I love the fact that she said, I'm not saying sorry for it. Yeah, stand on it. I'm not saying sorry for it. She goes on to say in her confessional, Guerdy is like, I've been here before where I was put in an area where the kids didn't speak Spanish. They made fun of my name. She was like, it was very isolating and traumatic, and I felt abandoned. So honestly, I'm not about to kiss nobody's ass. I am a strong lioness. I'm not a following sheep. Like, I can be by myself, but I don't believe that, Guerdy, because I saw that super trailer and the way that you caved. This was cute for the confessional, but the way that you caved in that, and not the super trailer, but the mid-season trailer, I don't believe that you're a strong, lonely lioness, girl. You caved. You caved, okay? But Guerdy ends up saying, y'all acting like I posted a dick pic. Then you have Alexia in her confessional saying, I would be okay if it was a dick pic, to be honest. I was like, okay, Alexia, of course you would be. So then she was like, what Guerdy did was humiliating. And I'm like, but y'all didn't think what Julia did was humiliating? So then Guerdy ends up saying, well, honestly, I never really had a chance to communicate my feelings because for the past couple of months, y'all all have been on her side, and that's great. So then Marisol was like, no, Guerdy, we all like, y'all involved us all in this. You then see Adriana in the back looking for somebody to open up this bottle of wine, and you could already tell she is drunk because them eyes is like this. Who gonna open up this wine for me? I need someone to help me open up this wine. I said, girl, Julie is pissed because she's like, where are you at, Adriana? Adriana is more focused on about getting something out the bar than helping defend me. Girl, you got two other people helping defend you, Marisol and Alexia. Why do you need Adriana? She was like, you know what? I know y'all won't listen. So then Guerdy ends up saying, I know you guys aren't going to listen to my story. So what's the point? What's the point? So then they go into the confessional and they ask Kiki, Larsa, and Lisa, did y'all read the text? And Kiki was like, no, I didn't read it. Larsa was like, no. And then even Lisa was like, not really. So they give them a printout of the text. And Kiki says, honestly, I'm just seeing a lot of hi, babe, hey, babe type of information. And Lisa said, yeah, there's a lot of like babe information in here. And then Larsa says, girl, I'm not really even interested in looking at this. She was like, I know both parties involved and I'm not interested. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the way that Guerdy released the information was effective because nothing in those texts were like jaw-dropping because of the way that she did it. There needed to be a more strategic way of rolling out this information where the women would get that Julia was lying. Just plastering the text all up on the screen, it didn't help any because nobody wants to sit there and read a full entire text, especially if they're expecting to see something salacious and they don't see anything. You need to give more added context if you ask me. Alexia ends up saying, well, Guerdy, we're feeling like you could do the same thing to us. And like Guerdy said, and what about her throwing water on me? She could throw water on you too. And then Alexia was like, well, yes. And then you hear Marisol said, we never thought that was cool. We never thought her throwing water on you was cool, Guerdy. We did not think that was cool. And so she was like, honestly, Julia, do you want to have a private conversation? Okay, and deliberate about this more. And Julia said, yes, we can have a private conversation with cooler heads prevail. So then it's the next day. You got, what's her name? Adriana waking up saying, girl, I drank too much and I'm not really proud of the way that I behaved the night before. Then we end up seeing on the other boat, it's Larsa, Marisol, and Alexia waking up in the morning. And Larsa ends up calling Stephanie. Stephanie ends up saying, like, did y'all have a good night? Or questioning, was the night fun? Like, did y'all have a good time? And they were like, yeah, for for the most part, it was a good time. And then she was like, did y'all fight? She was like, girl, you don't even want to know. And then Stephanie said, Alexia, did you bring the rock riler out? And then immediately Alexia says, F you. F you, Stephanie. And Stephanie's like, girl, what did I do? And even Larsa feel like Alexia is doing too much. She was like, Alexia, it's too early in the morning for you to be this upset. Like it was a joke. Like there was no reason for you to be like that. And honestly, what it boils down to, and I don't even think Alexia is jealous. I know a lot of people feel like Alexia is jealous, especially at the end of the conversation where she was like, if her life is so perfect, you know, with her perfect husband, perfect this, perfect that, why is she so miserable? And my thing about it is, I think Alexia is just pissed off that Stephanie keeps talking about Todd, which keeps putting light on her situation with him. Granted, Alexia is talking about this man because that is what she's experiencing in this moment, but we've seen Stephanie several times bring up her relationship, and you already know that Alexia holds grudges. So I was just like, yeah, Alexia, there was no reason for you to be mad about this, but also when you already don't like somebody and you feel like everything they say to you is a dig, then it's a problem. But to Stephanie's credit, girl, you did call yourself a rock riler the other day. So why you got an attitude? And Alexia ends up saying, well, you know, we were joking back and forth, but I know that wasn't a joke. No, you're perceiving it as it not being a joke because you don't like her. That's it. That's all it is. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in the comments below. Share your thoughts with me. Subscribe and like the video. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.